Hey guys, welcome to another voiceover tutorial. My name is Akimi-chan, and this voiceover tutorial we're going to talk about elementals. So we got the four big elementals here: fire, water, earth, and air. It was suggested by one of you that I do an elemental tutorial. I thought it would be fun if it was voiceover because then I can explain the process a bit easier this way. So here I have four groups already laid out. So we're gonna first start off with fire. And I usually like to paint with background noise. So either I would watch something on YouTube or just open up, search for a music video and just listen to it. Right now I'm listening to classic music, so it's all piano, orchestra, and other traditional instruments. Pretty cool. So let's get started. Okay, so fire. I'm just going to I'm gonna be doing it in a step-by-step format, or at least a few steps, so you guys can see the progress that we're gonna make. So first off, about fire, it's quite an interesting element. I found some reference picture, but I'm not sure if I can show in this video without, going over any copyright. So, but I do recommend you guys to check out. If you guys can just Google CG texture. Now it's called something else, but if you Google this, you'll find this website, and it's gonna have a art library of various texture like fire, water, trees, stuff like that. Anything you can possibly imagine that's realistic. So if you guys check this out, you'll be able to find royalty-free stocks that you can use in your paintings. And a free account gives you I think 15 credit, and usually one image costs 1 to 2 credit to download, so you guys can get a few free ones per day from this texture with a free account. We've been using this since when I was in college, and it's always been really helpful. So yeah, just want to point that out before we start, in case you guys want to go search up some fire textures. Okay, so first, as you notice, the background I have is kind of not a white background. The reason being, it's easier to show the elements if the background was not very bright. But in this case, I'm gonna start with fire. Gonna make the background a little darker, just so the fire can show up a bit more when we're working on it. Just gonna take a big airbrush tool and just gently glide it over without barely any pressure on my hands, so it will show up very faintly. Okay, so let's go on with fire. So now fire can have many combinations of color. It's different if it's gasoline fire, because if you have gasoline fire when you're cooking, you usually see a bit of a blue tone in there, and then spreads out into an orange glow, then red. But if it's just burning fire, like campfire, it's usually just red, orange, and yellow combination. That's what we'll be using. So I'm gonna pick out a red color to start off, kind of like this, and I'm gonna give you guys my choice here. So I would like to make a really cool looking silhouette, but we'll try. So we're gonna try to go for a kind of a fiery looking silhouette, hopefully. I would like this to turn out not too cartoony looking, but I can't promise anything. So we're gonna have maybe have something like this, where the fire is twirling around, maybe. and it's flaring out like this. Notice how, oh, okay, I have to move this somewhere now. This is the color we start off with. The one that touching the actual silhouette that we're making. So right now we're just trying to make a basic shape of how our fire is gonna look overall. Fire is quite free. The form is very organic looking, so it's often recommended if you have some sort of reference. I cannot show you any references because I don't want to get in trouble for copyright, but if you guys just Google any fire reference, it will give you an idea of how organic looking it is. So I'm trying to kind of duplicate some of its form here. It's kind of looking like a tail actually. So how are you guys doing this week? I hope you guys are doing good. So I've been trying to get out more often, mostly because I want to play Pokemon Go. It's fun. Yeah. And just keep refining that shape. It doesn't need to be necessarily the shape I have. And I find that usually there would be like a bit of a very subtle layer of fire just going off into the distance like this. Okay, so let's say this is our base here. Notice how the form is pretty organic looking despite there being a flow here. But let's start off with that. So that's our first color. Next step. Next step, we are going to start. Actually, I want the background to be a bit more dark. Like that. I think it'll stand out better that way. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in, lock down that layer, and then going to go with a brighter color. We're just gonna start, oops. So that's the color we're gonna use. Now let's start with some random scribbles here. Try to be as random as you can, but still stay within the flow. So just keep it up. The easiest way to show fire is, I feel, through the extremities of these little details, because then it really feels like the fire is alive, having sparks here and there. So just gonna cover that area. It doesn't, the highlight does not need to cover all the areas, just a few areas. It would be wise to leave some of them uncolored, because if you take a look at real fire, now I'm going to show you guys a texture I found on CG Texture here. It's a free stock website used by most professionals in the gaming industry. They usually go on that website, pick out texture and slap it onto their concept, or anything that's Google images. As long as it's not recognizable, it's fine. Just make sure it's not recognizable. But as you can see, trying to duplicate this type of effect, well, not exactly word for word type, but trying to pick up the essential pattern here, which is dark color and then bright color where it burns most, I guess, and of course making sure that not all areas is covered by the highlight, making it more interesting to look at, variation, you know. So we're just gonna do that. And of course, we can go on and create a few, just paint outside the basic silhouette a bit, extend the shape. It's looking like electricity actually. But yeah, that's what we have. Now that we have that, let's keep going a little bit. Now I'm gonna turn this reference picture off. Okay. Now we're gonna try to experiment a little bit here. So we got this whole thing. We're gonna select the fire. We're gonna go to filter, blur, motion blur. So we're gonna add a bit of motion blur into this. This helps with blending it in a little bit. Let's see what would be different if we lock the layers so the silhouette don't change, but the inside will be blended by the blur. So it would be somewhat like this. I think I like it better with a bit of silhouette blur, so we're gonna go with this. Actually, I'm gonna make another layer and do this. So step 3, we're just going to go filter, blur, actually not gloss blur, but feel free to experiment with these adjustments. They're pretty interesting to test out, and who knows, maybe you'll find something that is really unique looking and you can apply it to your style. Oops, I forgot that it blurred the color palettes as well, so let's do that again. And of course you can adjust which way you want the fire to go. I think this direction is pretty okay. So now that we have that done, we can also use a combination of smudge tool. Now, smudge tool is pretty powerful. It can do a lot of stuff. For this purpose, only to smudge some of the fire, we're gonna hardness to 100%, a decent size. Now let's go into our brush setting because that's where the important part is. Now remove scatter because scatter blurs everything like this. Now that's not what we want, so we're gonna remove it. Once removed, it's more like finger painting, finger smudging, so it'll become somewhat like this. So we're gonna smudge the extremities of the fire, kinda like this. Now try not to go overboard because then it will look too much like it's smudged, but I think that is a good combination. I'm just going to open up another window and drag it onto my other screen so it's easy for me to navigate. If you have two screens, always better to kind of get a second window of it, which you can pop up from here. Windows, workshop, actually arrange new window for untitled ones. You haven't titled it, so just click on this and a new window of the same file that you're working on will appear, and you just drag that to your other screen, which really helps because then you have a big version here and then a smaller version over there. Okay, so now that we have that done, let's take a look at our reference picture. Notice how it gradually grows more brighter around this area. That's what we're gonna try to emulate now. So for the highlight color, we're gonna go with or yellow. So I'm just going to put the color here. Actually, maybe it could be a little brighter. Nah. Let's go with this because we really want the color, the traditional color, right? So let's take a look at the reference again, and notice how the more concentrated highlight is not everywhere, just certain parts. So there's darker and then focus gradually gradient into a more brighter area. So we're gonna try to do that, and let's say gonna leave this part as it is and maybe apply the highlight here. And for For this step, excuse me, I'm going to create another layer and I'm gonna paint on top of it. So throughout this process, you can create new layers and paint it on that new layer first. And once you're happy with it, you can just merge it down. That way, you can be safe. So again, applying randomly, but keeping in mind that need to leave certain space open as well. So just keep that in mind. Of course, we can apply some highlights to some extremities. Okay, so let's say this is what I want here. Now let's go blur and blur it up. Okay, so it's getting there, right? It's still looking a little muddy, right? But it's getting there, guys. Don't worry. It's not over yet. I know it looks a little bit like, I don't know, a really bad pizza or something. I don't know. But we're going to make it better. So now we can test it out with different mode of layering to see what looks best. I kind of like this, even though it's a little hard on the eyes, but if we duplicate that layer again, it's more intense, right? Let's say we're happy with this result. It still kind of looks kind of bad, but we are not done here. I would like to conserve space a bit more, so just gonna move this part in particular in the middle, so I can drag these over here like that. So I'm gonna name this as step 1, 2, that's step 3. So let's go with step 4 now. Now what can we possibly do to make this fire look more fiery? That is the question. Now a lot of people in the concept art industry, what they would do is do something basic like this, then they would use a real texture and layer it on and paint over it. We could do that, but I want to see what I can actually produce without using real texture. But you guys can absolutely do that. So now we're going to start, I'm gonna make this a little bigger. And we are going to go into brush mode, put it under overlay, select this color here. So we're gonna start painting it manually in. Notice how I'm not on any special layer mode, it's all brush mode, so it allows me to paint on the layer as if it was on a layer mode. So we're just going to color it like this, and we're going to just add these sparks. Now spark is really important because this will help us sell that it's fire. We can also use different colors for the sparks, right? But important thing is to make it convincing. I need to make it brighter here. So changing the color from orange to yellow, see that color here, would help with the variation. Of course, we are still trying to make this not look too bad here. Now we can use a combination of brush and then smudge it together here, like this. And then continue with brush So we're just gonna keep up with this combination here. From past experience, painting fire is a lot like painting water in terms of how dynamic both elements are. Like they both require a lot of organic shapes and separate particles flying off everywhere like this. Both are very similar. But yeah, so for fire, there's no exact formula for it, except keep in mind that it's organic, very organic shaped, and of course, if you can produce some sparks here and there, it would help a lot to make it look more convincing. So wow, it's 20 minutes in and we still haven't finished this. Oh my god. Sorry. That's just my standard for myself. I'm also trying to make sure that it's easy for you guys to understand what my approach is. But for sure, if you're starting out, I mean, if I was just starting out and I was not familiar with painting fire with no experience, I don't know, it would take me a few days to get it right, like to get something that I'm satisfied with. So don't worry about it. It will take longer when you're just starting out with it, but it will get faster as you keep doing it. So, I mean, it's not realistic, but if we zoom out, it kind of feels like fire, right? That's also a trick. So what you would do is you would paint on a very big canvas, usually I think when I was in school, when I was painting, we had to do something for matte painting class. This was in college. So I was painting on a 10K pixel canvas. That was how big I painted on, cause it was a saying that if you paint on a big canvas and then you resize it, it would be more difficult to see errors and like the roughness of your brush strokes and stuff like that. That is actually kind of true. Now we are not painting on a very big canvas here. Actually, I could make it bigger. So let's go with 4000 instead. So now it's slightly bigger, so we'll be able to squeeze in more details. But okay, so we have this so far. I'm gonna need more room for this. I thought I was only gonna take up one line in step-by-step form, but I guess I'll take up a few more lines because I'm not completely satisfied with this now. Let's take a look at our real fire here. Okay, so let's observe. First of all, this fire is against a black background, so it obviously looks a lot better. Yeah, that's... Okay, so now we're gonna focus more on this area. So as you can see, it's got a lot of tiny little highlights in here in forms of swirls. So we're gonna just do exactly what it looks like. We're gonna put the multi-color dodge and start adding these. Gonna try to emulate now. It's white almost. So I'm gonna make my brush thinner. So it's kinda like this almost. Again, trying to be random here. And again, always good to kinda have a bit of scattered particles here and there, so that way it gives it that nice particle look, which makes the whole thing looks more alive, I find. So we're gonna do that. Now I have a few interesting thing I like to talk about. It has nothing to do with art, just, you know, like fascinating facts I was watching this video, but I'm not gonna say it right now because I would like to focus on this first. But once we get a downtime, which I'm sure we will get to at some point, I will be talking about it with you guys and sharing it with you guys, because I think what I saw online was interesting enough to bring up. And you know, I don't think I can be talking about repetitively my techniques over and over again. It'd be too repetitive, so I'm gonna try to, like, you know, be one of those YouTubers and talk about off-topic stuff, trying to educate you guys a little bit. Well, I mean, I'm sure that not every one of you know what I'm gonna talk about, but maybe some of you will be able to, because you guys know of it. But yeah, so this is the next step, kinda. Still looking a little bleh. Okay, so I'm gonna move this down here. Now I'm gonna duplicate it once more. And I'm going to see if we can make this better looking, just with a bit of adjustments. Wow, that is really red, you know? Okay, I think I like this pretty good. Let's see if we can kind of make this background a bit darker, so it looks... So if we do this, oh my god, it looks so much better now. With I knew it, with a black background, it looks a lot more obvious that it's fire. Okay, so that is what we have. Okay, so one more thing that we might want to try here. So here I just adjusted the colors through adjustment and I think color balance. So I was just playing around with this. So for the final step, I'm gonna make sure that this is the final step, because I don't want to be carrying it on forever. Let me just name these steps. Oh, this is so beautiful. Gino Petty, no number one. I'm listening to this song. It's a classic. It's really nice. It's a really slow paced song too. But anyways, so for step 7, we're actually gonna create a new layer, and again we're gonna select the color, the one of the highlight colors, and we're gonna put the brush mode to overlay. Now we're just going to kind of going to use a combination of orange here, and we're just gonna try to create like these random what's it called, like flames that's kind of lit, flaring up and into smaller bits like that. And we're going to motion blur it this way, and we're going to warp it, and we can also erase parts of it so it looks more pointy at the top, like this. So now it has a more of a flamey feel. Let's test out if it would look good if it was in other format. Yes, it does. On vivid light, it actually looks like little flames going up, right? Let's see if we can do that here as well. Again, don't forget them sparkles. Get some of that flaring. I mean, those what's it called? I don't know what they're, amber? Yeah, fire amber. Yeah, that's what they're called. Amber going on here. Kind of like this. So add some here and there. Okay. So for step 7, I'm going to make a layer for it, because I feel like it would be confusing because I'm not painting on one layer. I'm going to layer on some special effects. So for step 7, let's use some of this texture here. So we're going to just take it and we're going to put it in screen mode. And we are going to try to apply this to our painting here. We're going to use what's it called, a warp tool. So how to get the warp tool, you say Control T first, right click on your tablet pen, and you know the 2 little buttons, right click on one of them, and then warp. So now you get this grid which you can control. So how we're gonna apply this texture, you say? Well, we don't want to have all of it out. We just want to get a bit of that texture in our work. And of course we're going to Control T, warp, and just going to warp it. Of course we're gonna have to erase some of it so it would blend better with our piece here. Somewhat like this. Maybe over here could be something like this, maybe. Of course, don't forget to erase parts of it. We don't want to use all of it. So, somewhat like this, to just give it that extra little kick there. Now if we zoom out, it looks like fire, doesn't it? If you squint, it almost looks like fire. So that is our fire tutorial. Well, this is my method of painting fire, and it's not the best. I mean, honestly, if you look close up, it's not realistic in any way. It's just representation of fire in a painted style. Okay, so now we're gonna work on water. So I've said that water and fire were very similar in terms of painting style because they're both very dynamic looking elements. They're always happening, like they don't have a set form, so they're always like trying to find themselves, so their form is very organic and random and spontaneous. So for water, it's kind of hard to find a water texture on this CG texture that's like a very stereotypical water. So it was kind of, I don't think I'll be able to pop out a reference for you guys for water, but what I did find for water that I think is that I am able to show on this video is this image that I found on CG Texture here. Now, as you can see, water, look how spontaneous it is. It's all like going out in 2 flows, but then it spreads out very like randomly in speckles. So there's a lot of speckle here, and we're gonna keep that keep that in mind. I just wanted to show you guys this picture and wanted to tell you guys that keep in mind for the water that is, well, like water that's not inside the lake or ocean and just free falling or free forming. It usually has a lot of small particles. Now if you Google water on Google, what did I just say? Google twice. Anyways, if you just Google water, you'll find some really good reference and you'll know what I'm talking about here. but I think it's okay to show this. Oops, it's a bit big. But I have Adobe stock account, so I hope it's okay to show this, and plus it has the watermark on it, and this is the number. But yeah, I found this image on Adobe stock, and this is a good demonstration of what I want to bring you guys attention to. So usually a pretty looking water would start off with a dark base here, right? And then it would have like light shining through behind it, and thus creating this really nice looking highlight color that's very gradiently blended in with the dark color. It's not just very like sudden, it's very subtle here. And of course top it off with the water that's just spread out like in particles. Usually they are white color or just a brighter color like this, just falling down, kind of like snow actually. So we're just gonna keep that in mind while we paint the color, I mean the water. So that is the two reference I wanted to show you guys. I'm gonna keep this on the side here. So yeah, let's get started. Let's see if this one will take 30 minutes. I'm not sure how long this will take, but we're gonna start off for water. Gonna start off with a similar setup. So I'm gonna start off with a dark, actually that's dark-ish color here. I think this color would be okay. So gonna put my base color here so you guys can reference off of that. But in fact, any dark blue color would be fine. And I'm gonna try to think up a interesting shape for the water. Let's go with normal. Make sure your brush mode is normal. Let's go with a nice, I don't know why, but I kind of like this this kind of form. It just looks, I like this flow. It's like a snail flow, kind of twisted onto itself, right? So let's say we're going to go with the shape. So now that you know the basic of water and how it tends to not be a solid shape, it tends to kind of, you know, flare out into small particles, right? So we're gonna make sure you guys have that. And also another note, if you go on Google, look up water, and you will see that a lot of the water would go out in this type of pattern. So kind of like this, like a triangle with like extended, kind of like this. I don't know how to explain it. So a triangular format, like an A, and then you would have extended legs here. So that is how they like to kind of separate from each other. So we're gonna paint a lot of that. Gonna paint a lot of that form here. Again, let's keep in mind, don't forget, they tend to spread out, creating their own little sugar sprinkling shape. Okay, so again with the shape here, don't forget. So one thing, I'm not sure if this is the right time to talk about, but something interesting. So I'm Canadian, and I've been watching this show on YouTube called CBC Marketplace. It's a pretty interesting show. That show is kind of like an investigative show where they go undercover kind of in restaurants, hotels, and or like services like lawn mowing and grocery store, etc. And they go in undercover and see if there's anything shady going on. And trust me, there's a shit ton of shady stuff going on. Like just for example, hotel rooms, they might look clean, but they are not actually clean. Now they caught on camera like how some maids clean, and I think they caught this a cleaning lady of a hotel on camera where she kind of was washing the toilet with the same sponge or the same toilet washer, and she would use the same tool to wash the what's it called, the thing you the what I don't know why is it not coming to mind. She would use it to wash like areas where you should not wash toilet and then wash that area with. So like for example, the sink, she will wash the sink and the toilet with the same thing, okay? And also like just use a mop, just like wipe down the counter really fast, and that mop goes into the same container where she puts the thing she washed the toilet with. So that's how dirty hotels are. And also the bed sheets are the bed sheets are super, well, some hotels, I'm not saying all hotels, but at least the hotels in Canada, oh my god, the beds, they sometimes they would find like pee stains and coffee stains that hasn't been washed properly and supposed to be clean, right? So pretty interesting stuff, right? And Marketplace, they would go and investigate, and they would confront the hotels. And you know what, the hotels usually don't do the interview because, you know, they don't want to get confronted like that. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Also, anyways, there's other stuff I want to talk about, same thing. But if you guys just go on YouTube, Google Marketplace CBC, you'll find a list of their videos. They're actually officially on TV, and they do these investigations undercover about how dirty hotels can really be, and how what's the dirtiest chain restaurant in Canada, etc. I'm sure it's similar in the United States or around the world. So it's interesting knowledge to see, and just like interesting. And if you know that, then next time you will be more careful, right, around hotels, restaurants, etc. So anyways, let's pass on to the second step. So that was a lot of talking that has nothing to do with painting. Okay, so the next step, we are going to lock down this layer, and we are going to use a darker color, and we're going to shade it like so. And I'm going to make a note of this color that I just used. Now we are going to use the airbrush once again, and we're going to add highlights here. So I want my water to be transparent around this area. Around this area. Again, I will be putting this color here, that's my highlight color. And of course, I will be, remember how the extremities is white usually, based on the references I showed you guys. If you look at here, white, the extremities are usually white. Well, if I just move this reference, yeah, it's white. So that's step 1, that's step 2, and then we're gonna move on to step 3. Actually, I forgot to put this down here. So already you're starting to get a feel of it, right? So the third step is just to add texture to it. Again, water is kind of like fire, but just a little different. Water can be painted a little bit like hair, I think, because both of them have a bit of shine going on. So gotta paint it, blend it in, but with a bit of texture. So what I'm doing is I'm just making brush strokes in a very circular motion just to go with the flow. And of course I am not using my full strength, so try to keep the pressure light, and also I'm trying to kind of blend that in. And now it's time to make sure that there is lines. Now I'm making small lines that curves like this because that's where my water, the flow of water is going. It's going in a little flow here. Very curved flow. Kind of like this. Going out like this. So we're just going to start off here, and there's many ways to paint water, but I will show you guys a quick way to do a second look for water, but for now we're just going to focus on this look. So again, the extremities are usually lighter in tone, so we're gonna try to nail this. So again, I'm blending it in subtly, not going in all the way, just, you know, on the side areas, subtle, and just keep adding that detail here. Maybe even start applying some of this pattern here and there. So kind of like this. Again, the pattern is like a weird looking A with really long legs. So just add that here. I know it might be a little difficult to get used to, but once you get used to it and do it more often, it'll be easier for you guys to paint this. But just keep in mind a lot of randomness going on, a lot of particles flying, kind of like this. So again, the A pattern. But if you guys had a reference to refer to, it would be very helpful for you guys. Or you can just refer off of what I'm doing. But principle is basically the same. You have dark area, the light area where the light is coming through, and then the area where your the water is not contained anymore, so it just like pushes out into little particles and separate into small bits. And this is usually where you can sell the audience that it's water, because it really gives it that, like, that water look where it separates into small particles. So of course there's one area where it's more concentrated, like here. I'm trying to make sure that the end tip here is where it's mostly concentrated and it's easier to see, but you can also put a bit of it on the side too. Yeah, just kind of like so. While I'm doing this, you guys know the basics of this. I'm gonna be talking about something else that I was watching on Marketplace. So you know, actually I'm trying to think of something interesting. Oh yeah, if you own a pet or a dog, they had I think they had this like poison toxic pet treat that looked really good. Like it's this dog jerky that looks like dried up chicken for reals, legit looking, but it was made in China. Apparently a lot of pets died or got sick because of it, because in China I think they added like this toxic chemicals to dogs, and also they had like contamination over there while they were making treats, and because of that a lot of dogs got poisoned. Now this treat is probably still like on sale, so if you have a dog and you see like these jerky treats, don't buy it because it can be dangerous. But Yeah, so what happened was Marketplace went in, investigated, confronted the company that were making. They were like, can we? They contacted them, and guess what? They refused to do an interview or say anything. They were like, oh yeah, it does. We have yet found insufficient evidence to show that our tree is the cause of like how dogs die and get sick, so we're not gonna recall the product. So a lot of shady deal going on. And the thing is, in the end, if they're making a lot of money, they're not gonna stop doing it, even if it kills dogs, and they're not gonna try to figure out a solution for it. So if you find any pet food or any food for that matter that's made in China, just keep in mind it might not be that good, because shady stuff happens in China. I'm born in China and I think it's pretty shady. So yeah, some of their practice pretty questionable. So that is what we have for the water, and already it's looking pretty watery looking. So we're gonna again step 4. So this step is all about adding more textures in here. So again, we're gonna go with a highlight color. I'm gonna put the highlight color here, and we're just gonna go in here and do a lot of texture it up. So if you look at this reference here, if you look at it, and if you look at how the water is textured, it's usually like little ripples here and there, and usually in forms of little lines, like horizontal lines, or the lines that is following the flow of the water. So here it's kind of like little ripples that's going kind of like this. So with that in mind, we are going to do the same thing with our example. So a lot of it is just referring to reference. If you're not sure how to paint something, always look up reference. I cannot stress this enough, because I have I think a lot of the times a lot of people are like, how do you paint this, how do you paint that? There's one simple solution: look up the reference, and there you go, voila. It's actually way better than like asking someone to teach you how to paint it, because when you learn something by yourself, it gets engraved into your brain a lot more. That's what I find anyways. I also could be just talking out of my ass, but that's what I feel. And definitely reference all the way. Like for all of this stuff, like how to paint water, stuff like that, I myself, when found reference, kind of like took note of certain things, and then this is the outcome. Like now I can say that even without reference, I can do like an okay job out of it. So yeah, but we're gonna add some highlights here with the same little format, like little dots that's going with the flow. So here too, and maybe we're gonna add some here just to blend it in. But the formula for this water is pretty much how it is. Shadow, highlight, little speckles on the side, or like speckles on where the water is, where the form ends, like where the water is breaking free. Just pretend the little sparkle, the little speckle is like the arms of the water trying to break free, or its hair, kind of like human hair. When they're crazy, they're crazy, I, for one, have crazy hair. I remember when I was really small, I used to have super curly hair, and in China, the in thing for hair is having like a nice straight long hair, right? And my hair was super frilly and like almost like a redhead, like curly like a redhead's hair. And it would never grow straight ever. So it would always stick to my head like an afro. It was pretty crazy. This is when I was a kid, like maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. And my mom would always like cut my hair once it grows a little bit. So my mom just kept cutting my hair until it started growing straight. So that was my story, and now my hair is still kind of curly. Like it's not the perfect straight hair that a lot of Asians want to have. Like I was envious of my friend, one of my really good friends. She's from Argentina actually. She has the most silkiest hair. Her hair was nice and long and straight, and she actually had, well, I'm not sure, she had a condition where she had natural like white hair or silver hair. I call it silver hair because it sounds cooler, but she had a lot of silver hair and it looked really nice. Like it looked like streaks. Yeah, I was really envious of her hair. It was pretty nice. My hair was pretty, and plus having straight hair is so much easier to wash and brush. But yeah, that's, if you're a girl, you probably know what I'm talking about, I guess. But then again, a lot of girls also like voluminous, you know what I'm talking about, like really thick hair as well. So I can only say for myself that I prefer straight hair, but a lot of girls out there, they like more voluminous hair that have body and shape. But yeah, so we're just here blending everything in, again adding those texture and also combining it with a bit of smudging here and there to help softening the shape up. So that's step 4. And step 5, I think step 5 will be our last step, I think. So for this step is, I'm just going to go in here and adjust it, right? To make sure the colors are really nice and intense. So here I'm purely adjusting the contrast of it, making it look more intense. And also we can check out the color balance and see what we can do to make it even nicer. So I kind of like this, it's pretty nice. Okay, so let's do a final step, like step 6, just so it matches with our fire. Oh great, it's not 30 minutes yet. Because my recording program, every 30 minutes it kind of desyncs after that, so gotta make sure that every time I cut the stop recording, it's within 30 minutes. That way my audio will not be desynced, because that's been an issue for quite a while, and I really apologize to you guys, but now it shouldn't be happening. So yeah, so for the 6th step, again I made a group because I'm sure I'll be layering on top of certain things. So first off, I would like to go into overlay. I would like to add that extra little highlight. Again, not applying to everywhere, just certain areas. Man, you guys have no idea how nice it is to paint to classic music. It's really relaxing, and for some reason I'm super focused, so definitely YouTube classic music and listen to it while you paint. I'm sure a lot of you will enjoy it. A lot of the classics that they use in movies as well. So adding the highlights, notice how I am absolutely sticking to the flow of things. Once once it's against the flow, it won't make sense. So again, sticking with the flow, just adding those small details to make it look even better. Kind of like that, and maybe add a bit of it here. Just a bit here and there, and of course we can erase some of it as well. So a good technique to create small shapes is you use a big brush, you do a general brush stroke, and then you use the erase tool and start erasing bits of it. Kind of like this. Okay, now I'm going to, oh, it's light. Again, keep it up with those small particles. Remember the first reference I showed you guys with the like the waves crashing onto a shore? That is how much particles water usually releases when it crashes into an object. It's pretty awesome, and it's one of the selling points that is important. Now, I'm actually getting an idea from this for a painting. I mean, this could be a hair, like a girl could be whipping her hair like this. It would be so cool. It would be so cool. I might actually do that, guys. I might actually do that. For some reason, water is more of an interesting thing for me, because the shape is so diverse and organic. Like, you would have the main body that has a defined shape, and then you would have the rest of the water that's spread out and trying to find the place to belong, you know. It's kind of weird, but it's how it is. Water is free. So just have a bit of specks here and there. Actually, I'm gonna erase this, so that's that. Also, I would like to make sure it's white on the rim so it blends in with the other one. And of course, last but not least, we can make overlay layer and apply some fog around it, because usually water releases, like, some particles of water would be too thin for the eyes to see, so it looks like fog. So we're gonna try to do that here. Of course, it also looks nice. And that is that. And we can also kind of erase parts of it. Okay, so that is for water. Now we're gonna move on to earth and air. Now, earth and air is more, I feel like, less organic in a way, except air. Air can be organic. Air is basically, for me, air, I'm gonna paint it as clouds or mist. That is, I think, the closest representation I can get to wind without having to show someone's hair flowing in the wind intensely. So, okay, so that's water. Okay, so I forgot to show you guys the second way of doing water. I'm gonna do that real fast on the side for you. So, just very quick way of doing water, like real water, is usually, if the background is light enough, the contour for water would be darker, so kind of like this, and you would be making shapes like kind of like this. Pretty random, right? But that is how water likes to form. So kind of like this. You will have the outline of water like this, and then you would get the highlights in there. Like so. So immediately, if you zoom out, it's starting to look a little bit like water. That is a quick trick. You can kind of blur it up a bit so it feels like it's water in motion, and maybe even, oh, that's a bit weird, even change it a little bit, make it darker, and then use a lighter color. You can go into dodge mode here. Somewhat like this. So apply the highlights. So this is a quick way of doing one type of water. Now the shape here is not exactly the most natural looking shape, but that's pretty much one technique of doing it. And water drops is easy. So you find an object, like the plane of the object that you want the water drop to be on. Let's say this gray background. So first what you would do is pick the same color, make it slightly lighter, and then slowly paint it in a way where it looks like it's dripping. And now we're going to go in and pick a darker shade and connect these two, right? And of course, put a shadow underneath it. And then you put one highlight, and then the what's it called, the highlight. So like this. And that's how you do little water droplets. I can repeat the process to show you guys. Kind of like this. If you zoom out, that's what it feels like. Of course, being on another surface might be able to make the point across better, but that is a very simplistic way of painting water drops and water, I don't know, shapes, like water that's free falling, you know? So yeah. Now I'm gonna move on to Earth. Number 1, I don't really have a reference for this, but Earth will just be rock with like some dirt falling out from it. So that is what I'm gonna do for Earth. And we're going to start off with what we did for the other 2 elements. So first of all, pick a color, basic color. So this will be my basic color. So I'm going to start seeing what silhouette I'm going to do. For this element, I'm gonna stick with the chalk brush. And if you guys should have the chalk brush if you downloaded my brush set, which is online, also part of the tier 2 rewards. So go on and download it. So Earth will be pretty simple. So it's just gonna be a bunch of rocks lifted into the sky, into the air, into the air, and maybe have some rocks sticking out, kind of like the water particles, except not as extreme here. So kind of like this, and maybe, you know, it's kind of, the Earth is like falling, the dirt particles falling from it, going down like this. And of course you can also use the airbrush. And you can kind of put it on the ground like this. So pretend that it's sand or something. Like that. So that is my shape for Earth. This will be a little more different from the water and fire. It's not as organic. Well, it is organic, but it's a lot of sharper edges pretty much. So let's get started. Let's add some highlights. So let's say our color is coming from above. So let's get to it. And again, using this brush. So right now we're adding colors to the surface of the rock. So here and there. Making sure we color areas where the highlight will hit. So we're gonna put a bit of it on top here, making sure it does not cover the whole top. Now we're gonna, maybe there's a smaller rock here, just adding the highlight on top where the sun is hitting. And of course here, and here, and here, and here too. Okay, so that is our highlight. It's already looking kind of like Earth, like a bunch of Earth lifted from the floor. Now I'm gonna go, oh, I forgot to include the color palette. There we go. Now go into third step. Okie dokie, so the third step. Now this is gonna be a little bit different. So we're gonna add a bit of highlight inside these shadow areas. So we're gonna select the color for the shadow and we're gonna just move it a bit warmer. Like that. And then we're gonna just start painting in some shadows. Now it doesn't need to completely fill out this shadow area. Sorry, we're gonna paint in the highlight in the shadow. Sorry, sometimes. So again, notice how I'm not painting the highlighting all of the shadow. We're just going here and there. The whole point of this process is just to make it clear that there is separate rock layers, and how we're gonna do that is just using a highlight color like this, just painting some of that texture. Notice how I'm going downwards and in a very like segmented strokes, like lines, little lines. Also, I want to define these areas better, so I'm going to make sure it's defined. So in the end, it might look something like this. And of course, feel free to play around with these as well, like maybe add like, what's it called, cracks in here by using the eyedrop tool and creating the cracks on the surface, you know, stuff like this. And of course something like this, you know, stuff like that. Of course, this will be, I think this would be fun for you guys to work on. Just make sure the cracks does not look too organized, patterned. They should look a little random like this. And of course there could be also cracks down here, but we'll get to that later. again, you can also go in with this brush and do this type of little action. Just dab it on there. Use a dabbing action. And then just making sure that there's somewhat of a texture there. That's an important part of drawing rock or earth, is there should be like a dirty kind of texture-ish feeling to it. So dabbing action definitely helps with that. So we get the nice dabbing action here and there. So there we go. And that is our next step. So we're gonna go into the fourth step now. Okay, so step number 4. See how, let me just say that painting rock is a little bit easier than painting fire and water, because fire and water is like crazy, and rock is pretty solid. Like, it's pretty straightforward. You got a surface, a few surfaces here and there, and it's just straightforward, you know, highlight, casting on top, so you got the plane on top and then the plane on the side with shadow color and stuff like that. But with water and fire, it's a little different. So right now, what we can do is just go in and just detail it up, refine it. Now, refinement for rock is pretty simple. Do not use airbrush for this, for the surfaces, because it will look nothing like rock, because rock's supposed to be solid, right? So again, keep using the same chalk brush and just blend it using the chalk brush the best you can, like what I'm doing right now. So clean up some of the edges, maybe, you know, add some cracks here and there, that type of thing. That's what we're gonna do to refine these areas. Kind of like this. So just a lot of little details here and there. Here needs a bit of refinement, and of course we can go down here, because I know some of the area is not perfectly refined, so we're just gonna go down here and refine it a bit like that. And of course the silhouette, keep in mind, should be random, and make sure to use a small enough brush so you can get small details in there, because that's painting rock silhouette is about first putting down the big silhouette and then secondary silhouette, which is small silhouette. That can only be done using a small brush, because smaller brush will be easier for you guys to create it. So that is the reason to why using small brush. And here, there, put a bit of it here, there, and this side as well. And then get over here. And of course, we can also use the lasso tool to clean it up. Make sure to leave somewhat of a jagged texture if you can. Kind of like this, so we can keep that rocky feel to it. Again, cleaning it up but leaving some of that jagged texture, like that. And here too. And here, this is a small one, doesn't really matter, but might as well do it. And here, just cleaning it up. And yeah, that's pretty much That's good. Okay. So now that we have kind of cleaned it up a little more, we can start adding a bit of texture here and there. Just like again with these type of lines here. And of course not doing it to all the areas, just gonna select small areas and we're going to add a bit of this texture here and there just to stimulate that rocky feel. And of course we can extend some of this. Again, small brush, small details. When you're trying to add details, it's all with a small brush. So with a big brush, it's for the general shape. For the smaller brush, it's for the small details of it. So that's the principle. So kind of like this. And we can add some cracks now in the shadow with a darker brush. You gotta be careful with this because we don't want it to be too dark. Just going to want it to be just a little bit darker than the actual base color. So just a bit darker, and remember to paint with like very small pressure on your hands in the shadow area. We're just trying to add some of those cracks into the shadow area to emphasize the cracks that we've made, like that. Here too, there's a crack here, so we're gonna emphasize it. So again, bigger brush to blend stuff in or to add some more defined texture. We're gonna add a bit of cast shadow here. And somewhat like this. So now I've gotten a bit quiet because I'm super focused right now. Sorry about that. It happens. Sometimes when you're really focused, it's hard to talk. But yeah, that's what we're, again, adding those cracks in there. So that is how to paint rocks, kinda-ish. Well, one way of painting rocks. So this is the earth element. It's getting there. So that's step 4. We're gonna do step 5. Step 5 will be me trying to add a bit of greenery in this. So again, just selecting a very grassy color. I'm just going to apply to these areas, these shadow areas or cracks, because that's where grass like to grow inside earth that's cracked. Like they like to be inside the cracks of the earth. Or at least it makes more sense that it's inside near the cracks of the earth. Just sprinkle it on very subtly here and there to make it look not so dead. It adds a little bit of color in there, so adds just a bit of it. Just gonna add a teeny bit everywhere, even here. And of course we're gonna go in, select a brighter color. So this is gonna be the highlight of the grass. again, not applying to everything, just again dabble it on like this, like little particles almost, highlight it with, just give it that feel that it's there, you know. So once we have that, it kind of looks like a piece of rock with a bit of moss growing on it, you know. And step 6. So there's a bit of earth. I don't know what I'm doing. I guess I'm going to try to make it feel like there is earth floating everywhere. Just going to add a bit of earth here and there, and of course don't forget the highlight. Again, this can be pretty rough because it's just a minor thing. The main focus is this. So we have that, but we can add a bit here and there. Oh, I forgot to do this little guy here and add the highlight. You can just dabble it on almost. And maybe they have like a dirt flying out of them, well, coming off of them. That's why it leaves like this type of trail. Kinda like this, maybe. Yeah, kinda like that, I guess. And there we have it. That is element of earth. And one last thing we can do is just adjust it a little bit, the color. Make it more bright, I guess, like this. So that is earth, and for earth it took less time than water, because water and fire is a little bit more explaining to do. Earth is a little bit less complicated, because its surface is pretty much flat-ish. So yeah, that's earth, and last but not least, air. Just like Avatar, just like Aang. Yeah. He's the airbender. I'm not the best when it comes to clouds, but clouds, I would say, is similar to water, kinda, in how it forms. So, it's a little hard for me, cause I am not the best when it comes to drawing clouds, but I'll try my best. First, I guess I would like it that the background would be a little more blue. So somewhat like this. Let's make it a little blue. Kinda like this. Alright, so painting air is gonna be a little bit more interesting. I guess I'll start by making some shapes with the cloud shapes, or somewhat like form the clouds into intricate design. My music sounds a little loud. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so I suppose we can go with the theme of like swirling, like for the fire and water. So for the air, gonna make it kind of swirly. Again, I'm gonna turn down my hardness so it has a very soft feel to it. So I'm gonna start with this type of shape. So the cloud is swirling into almost like a vortex kind of thing. So air is not, I'm not sure how to say this, but almost formless. It could be any shape, but a shape that makes sense, right? And usually, I guess if I had to approach it, I would be using airbrush and toggling between 0% and 100, usually maybe 27%. Make sure that a bit of that airbrushy feel is there, and then try to create some interesting shape. I'm going to just edit it a little bit so it'll be kind of like this. There isn't much to say about air. It's well, cloud at least. It's just a lot of layering. I would think a lot of layering with the similar color and a similar brush. So we're gonna start off base with that, and all I used was this brush, standard round brush, toggling between a larger brush and a smaller brush, and toggling between 0%, which is airbrush, and solid round brush, which I haven't toggled yet. Maybe 0% to 36%, I would say. Just remain with like the softer brush approach. So after I've done that, so this is step 1. Next step, we will be kind of erasing parts of it. I usually like to use the eraser tool to kind of clean up some of that shape. But of course we want to maintain some of this fluffy type shape. So the shape is nice and fluffy. We're gonna try to keep it, but we're gonna also try to clean up some of these shapes. So again, trying to keep some of the fluff, but at the same time we're trying to create a certain pinch in certain areas for variation. Like that. And we can go back now and create more. Just paint, layer that on top, and again try to be as fluffy as you can be. Try to paint as fluffy as possible. Like that. And again, gonna try to extend it a little bit in a round way. Extend that line using airbrush 0% and making sure it's a small brush so I can add the extra little detail. Again, painting very, very lightly. And up here, of course, trying to make it, keeping it fluffy, you know. This is a little bit interesting to paint. So it looks, I guess it looks okay. Now, step 3. Air I feel is, I don't know, the process feels simpler compared to all 3 of them, because I'm actually not using a lot of colors here. Notice how in all these 3 I had to use multiple color tones. For air, I'm just using one single color, applying different pressure and using a combination of airbrush and solid round brush, toggling between them anyways. So it's not really that different. Now I'm going to go into overlay and maybe make my color lighter so I can make my stuff more fluffy looking. Yeah, way more fluffy looking. And of course we can highlight these areas more obvious, but again, make sure the rest is looking like cotton candy. And this is the only time I can tell you guys to be a little airbrushy, because clouds is a little airbrushy, but at the same time I still want to maintain some of that hard shape. So using a smaller brush and adding these little pointy ends helps with retaining some of that shape. I don't think air is my favorite at all. It's a lot of airbrushing. So once you have something like this nice and highlighted, we're gonna go back here, maybe 50% hardness, and we are going to try to take down some of that hardness with a sharper brush. So kind of like this, just paint it. And I'm going to again use the erase tool and erase some of these areas. Don't erase everything, we still want to keep that fluffiness, but I feel like a bit of hard edge would be good too, because if it's super fluffy, super airbrushy, it wouldn't look too great. I wouldn't think so. So we're gonna just trying to have a combination of soft fluffiness and harder shapes that I'm creating with my erase tool. Of course, I'm only erasing parts of it. And also some of it I leave like a little appendage hanging so I can connect it maybe later on with other bits here and there. Kinda like this. Yeah, kinda like that. So again, try to have a combination of soft shape and hard shape with a combination of airbrush and a brush that is less airbrushy. Again, toggle between hardness of, sorry about that, touch my mic, so that might have been really loud. Sorry about that. So 0% to 50% I would recommend in the range that you should use. And usually when you're trying to make a hard edge or create a harder outer line, use a smaller brush. It gives more concentration. So now that that's done, I'm gonna extend the canvas a bit more. Okay, so that's step 3. Now step 4. Step 4, we will try to we're gonna try to create some particles around it. So maybe you're gonna have a bit of it here. Again, combination of bigger brush and smaller brush. So I'm having some small shapes, kind of trying to connect to that swirl, and then kind of like this, just very small shapes here and there, like that. And of course, you can use your smudge tool. Now, smudge tool is excellent in this case because when you smudge something, it automatically blurs it to an extent. So it's very good for this type of work. So now you can kind of just smudge this area and keep it fluffy looking. So somewhat like that. Okay, so now we're going to duplicate it and maybe turn down the opacity on the duplicated layer and merge it down, so now it's lighter and you can see it better. So that is element air. Well, another thing, I guess the last thing I can maybe do to make this feel more like air or something like a little cyclone, or actually, yeah, something like that, is to paint the other side of it, because we only have one side. So gently I'm making circular brush strokes on the other, just painting over it to make it feel like there's another swirl on the other side, like this. And then actually, last but not least, to add the cherry on top. Now this almost looks like ice cream cone, doesn't it? But we're not gonna put a cherry on top. We're going to... One more thing that we can do to demonstrate that this is actually wind. We're gonna add some leaves, as if it's picking up the leaves. Oops. So we're gonna create the last step into a layer, and we're going to put some leaves. So leaves here, leaves there. So this will bring home the sense that it's wind and it's blowing and stuff. Again, try not to put too many. Actually, you could, but try to keep the leaves kinda in a random way, sorta. Like they're not... Try to spread them out in a random manner, but following the flow of things. You can put one here. Maybe there's one like in the middle or something. So somewhat like that. Now we can add a bit of texture, actually. Leaf texture. Now I'm just going to lock the layer and start applying some shadow, gradient shadow, like that. And of course we got to have our little leaf stem, right? So just add that on there real fast, and then maybe a bit of highlight. I'm gonna go with this color. And just gonna add very subtly, very small details. Like that. So with it, you can kind of feel like, oh, it's kind of like wind going around, like it's picking up random clouds nearby and it's blowing. Anyways, that is my take on air, and of course we can adjust the color a little bit to fit, make it more dynamic. So which color do you think we should pick? I guess this color would be fine. Something like this, maybe? Actually, no. I like it to have a bit of... Oh, that's the leaves. Okay. The air now. The air, I would like it to feel kind of like this. Kind of yellowish or warm color tone, sort of like this. And then I can go into brightness contrast and make it even more intense. So to something like this. So that is, oops, that is air. So there we go. We have the 4 basic elements: fire, water, earth, and air. Now out of all 4 of these, air seems to be a little more simple to do, just because air doesn't have too many color palettes involved, unless you're going crazy, you're doing some crazy air action. Sorry, someone's at the door, be right back. Okay, sorry guys, I'm back. So for fire, I'm just gonna do a quick resume. Again, check out CG Texture for free stock textures that you can use in your pieces. And of course, if you sign up as a free member, you get maybe a few images per day. And you can also pay for more. But yeah, just check that out. I found my fire texture there. So anyways, fire. Start out with a basic color, usually a shadow color. And then we add on highlights to it. And add on highlights to it. And then keep adding highlights. Now remember, when it comes to fire, adding little ambers here and there really helps sell that it's fire, and etc. So we just kept on doing it, adjusted the color here, and then last but not least applied a fire texture. Of course, it's not excessively added texture, it's just a little bit. And of course, adding extra amber helps tie the whole thing together. Now for the water, again similar to fire, start out with a shadow base, a basic shadow color, and then we started adding a bit of highlights with an airbrush, like a rough estimate of the highlight, some highlights inside, and then outside we have the particles, which is usually white, so I just roughly added the white color on there real fast. And here we started refining a bit more, adding a bit more texture. Now keep in mind I'm using smaller brushes to add the texture, so it looks more refined. So next we just kept adding more texture and highlight here too, and then here. This is the end where we added a rim of airbrush highlight, just very fast, like almost like mist, right? So it really ties the whole thing together. And here I just showed 2 quick little tricks to make water droplet or water effect real fast. So now let's move on to earth. Recap. Similar beginning, a shadow silhouette, usually a shadow color, and then we added on highlight, pretending that the lighting is coming from above. So we added the highlight on top here to make sure it feels like there's light from above. Now after that we added some shadow highlight inside the shadow. Now keep in mind not to put it everywhere on the shadow, just certain part to kind of help define the shape. And here we added more textures. We added like little cracks with a darker color, and we cleaned up the silhouette. And here we started adding like little grass areas, you know, adding a little grass adds more variety. And last but not least, on the final thing, we just went in, adjusted it, made the color more intense. Adjustments, you can use all of these. It's not showing up right now, but yeah, use that. And then I added some little rocks here and there just so it feels very earthy. And last but not least, wind or air, right? Air is using a combination of airbrush and 50% airbrush, 50% hard brush to create this spiral here. Keep in mind I'm using a combination of big brush with very soft touches when I paint and smaller brush with a heavier pressure when I paint to make a combination of hard shapes and fluffy shapes. So here I refined it a bit more, and here as well. You can also use the erase tool brush to kind of erase parts of it to make it, give it that like a harder edge, like a sharper edge, so not everything is airbrushy. Here as well, it's very using small brush to add connecting flows to other areas. And last but not least, I use another brush and just, well, the basic round brush at I think like 40% hardness, and just very softly painted on the lines in the back to give it dimension, you know. And last but not least, I added some leaves to give that feel that it's like a little hurricane cloud, kind of just spinning around and stuff. So we got the leaves here to add the extra feel of it, and also I use adjustment to make the color brighter as well. So that's been fire, water, earth, and air, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now definitely, if you guys need to look for references, what I just demonstrated is pretty like stuff that I learned and I'm familiar with. So this is my take on all 4 elements in very simple shapes and stuff. So of course it's not going to be like this for every context, but it's fun to test it out if you're just getting started. I think it's a fun little project to just paint it and have fun, and you can use the same method for a lot of other stuff too, like different shaped clouds, same thing. And of course don't be afraid to experiment, and always keep an open mind. Like don't need to do exact same shape as me or anything. You can test it on different shapes, but the logic is the same. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you guys again in the next voiceover tutorial. Have a good day, guys.